All right, this is jpeg2RAW photo review show number 22. And tonight we're continuing with the best of 2017 contest photos, this time with the beginner photos. And there's something a little bit different with the best of 2017 images contest, in that it's any image that you took in 2017, but also instead of being limited to just one photo, any photo that you entered into a contest previously in the year, you can enter into this one also. So you could, if you entered a photo every month, you could theoretically enter 12 photos plus another one that you did for the year. So you could end up doing 13. No one did, but as you'll see tonight, someone did submit multiples. So some of these you might have seen before. I know the one that we picked as the winner you've seen before. She did re-edit it with some of the ideas that AD gave in the last time, and maybe some of the others they re-edited. I don't know. I don't remember specifically on each one of these. There are at least 2 new ones, but some are 3 new ones. Whatever, we'll go through them in a minute. But there's several new ones. If you want to come out and enter the contest, this month we're back to doing a theme. We haven't done themes in a while. We've been doing open all the time. But if you want to come out and join us with that, we're over on jpeg2RAW.com/contest. That'll give you the link to either the Facebook group if you want to do it that way, or to go right from our webpage. And the themes this month is dream for the regular group, however you interpret dream, and then outdoor for the beginner group, or outdoors, whatever. So there you go. So come over there and enter the contest, and maybe your photo will be one that we do coming up in a future show. All right, AD, you want to get right into this and get started? And I need to make sure I pull up the right image. So I need to get set. I'm going to do them in the order that they're in that list there. All right, first one up is this one from Nancy Smith.
Yeah, I think this was like a unanimous, right?
Yes.
We talked about this image at one point in time, I remember.
Yep, it won one of the monthly ones, and this was taken at a memorial service for her daughter-in-law.
Yeah. A really touching moment, and yeah, that's the thing we talked about. You could tell that it was, people had the umbrellas out, but the sun, it's such a great, powerful image because, I don't know, you've been outside during a summer rain or a time when the rain is it's raining, but it's still sunny out. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I think that lends very well to the story behind this photo, and just, it's a sad thing to go through, and a horrible thing to go through. But it's also a beginning of healing and all of that. So I think that's pretty cool that it kind of signifies that with the background that we have, and then of course you have the honor guard there too. So yeah, I like this image a lot. I love how it's composed. I think that's the big thing for me.
And I think that was a little bit of feedback you had last time. It was very close, but you had a little bit of feedback on the crop maybe. And yeah. I think she tightened up the crop a little bit, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think she did on this. But regardless, it's a wonderful photo.
Yep. All right, you want to move to the next one?
Yeah. Let's go right.
And I believe this one is a new one. This one is from Seth Wade.
Yep.
And I can't remember if he's entered before, but he entered that month with this image. Didn't give us any information on it, so I don't have anything there. But it's a child in the field. It's got a little bit of what do you call it? Treatment to it to make it look a little bit older.
Yeah, a little vintage kind of feel to it. A little faded film kind of look, which is popular these days. I love that look for sure. I'm interested in why it's in a traditional crop, other than maybe he's trying to preserve the vintage style of film, which would be 8x10, in that closer to a square crop than like what we have today, which was like Nancy's image, which was more of a 3x2 or I think, right? Is 3:2 or 4:6? Yeah, the same ratio.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, I like this image a lot. I think he's got all the elements. I kind of wish that it sure looks like that's a pig out there in the field.
I
And
can't tell if it's that or a hay, hay.
No, it's an animal of some sorts. It's either a sheep or a pig or something out there. I wish it was just a little bit. I think that's the point, though. I wish it was a little more in focus, so we could, not in perfect focus, but I think just a little less bokeh in the background. The bokeh on that particular lens, no offense, is Seth, but it's not all that great. And so, I'm not seeing the clear, defined roundness that you see in a lens that has good bokeh. This is kind of a little noisy bokeh back there, which is the blurred part in the background that I'm talking about. But I mean the look on the kid's face, the attitude. He's a little tough kid. Out here in the field, got the the little wheatgrass he's got there going on. I think that's all great light on it and great post treatment without really, I'm kind of stabbing in the dark here. We talked about this before, so I'm going to make an example of Seth since he's new. But yeah, if you're submitting a photo and you want help from me, the best thing for you to do is tell me what you're going for here. Like, I don't need to know the location. I don't need to know about your camera unless you're unsure about your camera. And then you can always just say, use this setting. What do you think? Is this right? Or, but tell me what you're going for. Like, I wanted to make a vintage scene. I wanted to feature this boy in a field with the animal in the background. And then I can give you feedback that is generated towards that rather than towards my opinion on the photo, because my opinion is just like, everybody else's opinion. And any photographer is going to give you a different opinion. Mike's going to have his opinion on it, and I'm going to have mine. And it doesn't, we're both seasoned guys. We've been, out there for quite a while. So unless we have that thing from you, unless we have that kind of tell us a little bit more about what you're going for, then you're just going to get our opinion, and that's not going to be the most help for you.
One of the reasons I would need it is, without knowing that what he's trying to achieve here, I would want the boy to be a little bit sharper. He seems to be a little bit, not as sharp as I'd want him to. There is, you mentioned that the straw or hay, whatever thing's called, the weed coming out of his mouth, which I love that kind of thing. That's kind of cool and has that throwback feel to it. But there's another one that's coming up and almost touching it and creating this angle right there that I wish that one was gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things around it like that. I mean, and then, without knowing, again, if whatever the animal is in the background, I would have cropped that out, or not cropped it out, but cloned it out, just simply because it's a distraction. You'll find yourself in this photo, keep looking over at that and wondering what it is. Yeah. And now you're stuck on that. And that's taking away from your subject. That's taking away from the power of the boy. And I'll be honest with you, I can't tell whether it's in focus or not, because my image that I'm looking at is very JPEG-y.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of noise to it, and around the weed, and his face has got dots on it. And so, it's a lower res image for me than what you're seeing. So. Yep.
Okay. But thanks for entering, Seth. Keep
doing it.
Keep doing it, and let us know a little bit, because what you're trying to achieve there, that helps with AD's feedback, especially. All right. Next up is another one from Nancy Smith.
Yep.
Which is, this one.
Yeah, so this one, I think we talked about this and the next image a little bit. I just want to touch on it again. I'm torn in this image with I love the moment. The moment's great, but there's so much going on in this image. You got some sort of tree or something right in the camera's face, because I can see it up there in the upper left-hand corner. You've got this reflection in the window. You've got this brick building going into the distance, and then they're right in the center. So I'm looking around everything a lot more than I'm actually focusing on them. I think if you just portrait crop this and get rid of the reflection and the rest of it, because think maybe the next photo's got a better setup that we're going to look at, then this photo becomes that much more powerful. Get rid of all the fluff on the edges because it's not really doing a lot. If you want to show his face in the reflection, which I can kind of see there, then I would almost even go for a square crop. Just get rid of that stuff on the left because it's kind of like right now. It's the problem with targeted photos is if they're not symmetrical and have leading lines leading towards your subject, then they tend to make your vision not go to your subject anymore. We need those lines to draw us to the things in the center. So if they were positioned at the second window back, okay, and you had the reflection and the leading lines going towards them, that now this works. Okay.
Yep.
But where it's positioned now, it's kind of right heavy. And then we have the left, which is kind of got stuff going on, but nothing that really is lending to the photo. I mean, it's a tree and the bricks, and it doesn't really support the photo, I don't think. And I think an easy crop here, if you just did the crop and you'd see the difference in power in the image, because you're drawing us into their embrace, and that's what's important here. So we always have to be careful of a lot of the things that we try to do sometimes don't work out. There are ideas we have in the field and they don't work. So then we have to kind of think about it in the studio about, okay, that's not exactly what I was going for. It's not really showing me, the focus that I want. And then we make the cropping changes or whatever we have to do to complete that. I love the black and white. The toning in the black and white's great. The nice Jan's out there in the 30s kind of feel. I dig that as well, Jan. So for me, it just comes down to composition. And I see this a lot in the beginners groups. Composition is a bear.
It is. It's tough.
And I think a lot of people overthink it an awful lot. And I think if you start with the basics, and I think this is why it's preached so much. I didn't start with any of the basics in composition. I had several people approach me and say, hey, you've got an eye for this composition thing. And I kind of didn't know that. And I figured it out kind of in reverse. Whereas a lot of people who are trying to learn it and don't get that, aren't fortunate to get that. They go out and they try and they're not sure, what happens. I always tell people just start with the very basics. So start with put your subject in the third and then check the other third to make sure you don't have any competition. Like there's no photo bombing. You don't have a tree. You don't have things popping up behind them. And just start with that basic power composition at first. And sure, you're not being very creative, but you're learning. And you'll learn how you can then start to move things around a little bit and balance the image and tell a story with the image. But for me, this one isn't as powerful as the next one is, even though it's very similar to the next one that we're going to look at. So did you have something you wanted to say on it?
I just want to say, composition is something that is, for me at least, and I know for a lot of photographers, it is difficult. You getting down exposure and that kind of stuff is more technical and in some ways easier. The composition is something that is because in most of your scenes, they're different. You're shooting in a wide variety, especially if you're a landscape. You walk up on something and it's like everything's different. So I think that, like you said, with this one, moving them down to the other window, you can't do that now. But but a lot of the things you said are things she could have done in post. And doing those things in post, I think will help you in the field later on. As you say, if I'd done it this way in the field, and the more you do that and the more you work through that, the better you get. Just like anything, practice, practice, practice. Right.
Yeah. And if you wanted to keep this like in a landscape mode, just pull it in tighter. Because you're not really losing anything. His hand,
you can crop that out.
His hand's not doing anything for the image. We don't see it all, so it's not there. So there's a lot of ways you could go with this, not just the portrait crop and call it a day sort of thing. And that's the other thing too that you were talking about. Learning all the other things. It is like technically the rest of the image is great. I mean, it's high key. I like that. That kind of look to it. I think that works quite well for wedding photos. Keeps everything clean and bright and happy, and that's awesome. But yeah, it just comes down to the very basics of composition and playing around with that at first and learning that before you start to kind of go any further with that. So Let's look at the her next image because it's right in line with
this one's actually from the same wedding, I'd imagine, but it's from Kristen Lee Anderson.
Oh, same wedding, different. Oh, this is the primary shooter.
Yes, I believe so. This is
Gotcha.
Kristen Lee Anderson. I think.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's a good example, Nancy, and you know, this shows the nice composition here. With there's little things here like, but they're inconsequential. Like some people might say, well, his fingers are cut off at the top, and you know what? It's this story. This is really about the look of her in the embrace, I think. Mm-hmm. And I just think that, the way this is, you notice how the leading line is leading you towards the subject, just like I said, and the subject is in the third. That's like textbook, like right in the zone. Like you can't go wrong with that. And when you're doing something like a wedding where it's mission critical and you got one shot to kind of get it, you really want to go with that at first and don't try those experiments out. If you want to learn different poses and try different things, get yourself some kids or some, that want to be photographed and try that sort of stuff out first. Get a model out there and practice. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to take it to a wedding and, I saw this pose on the internet. I'm going to try it at this wedding. Whew. You're asking for trouble.
Yes.
You're asking for trouble. One of the things I want to mention too, Mike, a lot of people overlook movable focus spots in their camera. So one of the things that'll help you with getting your these moments like this and getting your focus, I know the old trick is point it at the subject, then compose, then click. But it's really easy with a lot of new cameras to move your focus point to a spot focus and move it around to where you want to and keep your composition so you're not moving back and forth. Mm-hmm. Then you can sit and riddle off quite a few shots of them kind of moving a little bit and maybe moving the hand position a little bit and things like that instead of trying to I watch photographers do this all the time. They leave their focus spot in the center.
Right.
They put it on their subject, then they compose, then they click. That takes time. And a lot of times when you have two human beings who are kind of in an embrace or they're not holding the position, they're kind of, they're just being themselves. That's when you're going to get the best shots is when you just tell them to relax, be yourself, forget I'm here. And then, those settings with your camera so that you're not missing those moments as they happen.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
Yeah. I love using all those. And it also helps you sometimes to remember to put it in that third.
Right, exactly. And when I shot rodeo a lot, rodeo is a tough thing because you got a big moving animal all the time. Yeah. And what I would do is put my focus spot in the third, and then I knew when I was tracking that my shot, that rider was going to be in the third, and I was going to have that space. And then I would riddle off some frames, and then I would check my backgrounds and be like, oh yeah, maybe a couple of those, the background is lined up perfect where I want it to be. And I wasn't thinking about focus, then move your camera. Forget that. I'd never get the shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same with wedding or sports or whatever it is, people moving around. And the other thing is too, if you're going to shoot, you mentioned earlier on landscapes, and then we can move on after this. Landscapes, a lot of people like to put scenes with the people, and landscapes are difficult because you're trying to compose with lines in the scene and subjects in the scene without people in it a lot of the times. But then I get portrait photographers who basically just put the people in the center of the shot and don't think about, well, we're in this location. How do I use the location as a support for the people? And I think if you go and look at your top wedding shots, you'll see that those photographers are making their background support, like in this shot, support your subject. And that's the difficult part in your composition. You can do the thirds and all that, but then you also have to think of it. Photography is hard.
It is. It can be.
Hard.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Ready for the next one?
Yeah, sure. Let's roll it.
All right. This is another one from, hold on, that's the wrong thing. Nancy Smith.
Hey, Nancy. I've never seen any photos from you before. I have to say I'm jealous about this photo because we have tried to get Orioles to come to our feeders, and they just don't bother around here. And they're here, but we just don't ever see them.
We already have bluebirds. I love the bluebirds, not the blue jays, bluebirds, and they've already got eggs, laying on eggs.
Wow. Yeah, we saw our first robin today. In fact, just before I came upstairs, I saw the first robin of the season. But yeah, this is a great photo. The focus is tack sharp. I think this is one of those things too, Nancy, where I think that if you would have moved over just a little bit more so that the bird was more on the right, or maybe move the bird just a little bit more over to the left so there's less of the feeder and more kind of blank space as the bird's kind of looking off into space. But the bird is kind of targeted right now. So it's in competition with the background and the feeder both, and it's 2 against 1. And that usually pulls away from your subject a little bit and it takes away from the power of the image. So when I give those suggestions about composition, that's usually what I'm looking at is who's photobombing here, and who's the subject matter. And it's tough because that feeder's that bright orange, right? So that's kind of drawing your eye a little bit too. But it's technically, as far as like the settings and the focus looks tack sharp to me. Again, I'm looking at it on a screen from Google Drive. So I don't know if I'm seeing the whole thing here, but and birds are challenging. That's where I'd move that focus spot around. A lot of time when I'm photographing butterflies or flowers or anything like that, I usually move my focus spots over. I'll put it on spot focus and then I'll move that little indicator like over if I'm going to use autofocus so that I can get the auto composing. Now, that doesn't mean my shot's always going to come out awesome, but what it does is it's a good starting point so that I can see the difference between whether it's a targeted shot. Because we think the sad reality of it is that we think of a targeted shot, and by that I mean with the subject right in the center of the shot, we think of it as a snapshot. That it's just, because you take it with a cell phone, you don't get to move those focal points around too much unless you've got like a touch focus or whatever. And that doesn't always work that great in the field. So you just, be thinking about that when you're doing your images. Maybe move the focus point over to one side or the other, and then you get your autofocus where you need it, and that'll move your subject automatically into the thirds for you, so you can see how that works. Yeah. I always tell people just experiment, because
if you hadn't done it before, definitely experiment with it.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a great subject. If you've got your backyard and you've got your subjects flying into your backyard for you, you really can't beat that as a practice studio. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, up next is this image from Christina Binge.
A day in the life.
Who is actually out in chat right now.
Yes.
Also, she says, a day in the life image I took of my sweet Cocker Spaniel who has a hair grumpy. Who was a hair grumpy. It was bath day. Yep. My dogs never, I love dogs. So I'm always partial to dog photos. My dogs never loved the baths either, but they love the after bath. They went crazy in the house after the bath. And this, you can see the emotion on this dog's face, not enjoying the process.
Yeah. So I like this photo. We actually have that same exact sink. So that's really funny. I love the vase of flowers up there. What I don't like is the faucet going into the dog's head, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's when I talk about backgrounds and compositions. And again, the dog subject is just a tad bit like in the center, like it's not left enough for me, or it's not right enough. It's kind of in the center. I will. I know, right? I had to mention that because it's anytime anybody mentions anything like the faucet, Christina, then you can't unsee it. I'm sorry. Right. So you wanted something really funny. So we used to have a Cocker Spaniel, and when you give them a bath, this is hilarious, by the way, and you get them all soaked up and washed up. If you want to take a really funny photo, take your hand on the top of their head and just wipe your hand forward, and their hair gets all like up in the front. It's hilarious. Anyways, but yeah, she has another photo, the one that we want to talk about next week, where I'll be able to, or whenever we do it. Yeah. You have another one in the bathroom, I think it is. And I saw that photo, and I really want to I'm going to do some editing on that just to give you some ideas. But yeah. Yeah, getting the counter straight, almost something you have to learn to do in post, especially with dogs. If you're trying to capture, like, the very first thing on your mind is let's get focused on the dog right in the moment, because who knows, the next moment it could be
This isn't going to last
shampoo.
long.
It could be a shampoo storm, and that dog will be gone. So a lot of times, like with that, I would probably just use like the tools in Lightroom or in Photoshop to straighten that. We talked about it, I think, and I'd be happy, like, to, when we do the other photo, Mike, I'd be happy to show her how we do the straightening with this in post, because doing it in camera, that's a great idea, and more power to you if you can pull it off. But it's just much easier. I can draw 2 lines on this in Lightroom and be done, and it's perfectly straight at that point. So that would be the last thing I'd worry about in my camera when you got a cute puppy in the sink like that. So yeah, again, I'm sweet spot for dogs. So yeah, that's right in my wheelhouse.
Yep. Great shot. Thanks, Christina.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
All right, last image is another one from Nancy Smith.
Hey. And her best image out of the group, with the exception of the first one that we talked about, it's for sentimental reasons, obviously. But I think artistically, this image is so much power to it and is so well done. And I just love silhouettes, and they're so hard. And this is a nice balance, I think, with this image, with the light and the dark. Just great image all the way around. I'm very, very pleased with this personally myself. So,
I got to tell you, it was Nancy's first image, the one with the at the funeral. Yeah, very powerful, and it was the winner. But this one that we're looking at now and the dog one were close. They were good shots that were in the running. All right, well that's it for this month. We're right at the 30-minute mark. But before we close out, we're close on time. We're trying to keep these to around the 30-minute mark. I did remember to record. That's always a plus. Before we go out, remember if you want your photos ever reviewed like this, you got to join the contest every month. Jan. But also, if you're not already a member of AD's, where do we get that? Of the creators, what is it, creators.com? We'll get you there. And I don't know if you're doing anything right now, because I know you're in the process of moving and craziness, but eventually, when you're back on track, you do generally every Monday, you release something into your Patreon here, where people can, watch you live and actually ask questions as you're going, right? Yeah, right now we're doing, we're kind of in the very beginning stages of a Luminar masterclass. So from MacFun / Skyloom software Luminar, I'm kind of doing a step-by-step go-through of Luminar from beginning to end. And so we're going to pick that back up in another month. I'm off for a month as we're moving and just trying to get all this stuff done. And so I've told my Patreons, I've said, if you want to continue to support me, it's fine. You don't need to. You can suspend your account for a month. Patreon's really cool like that. So you can come in and subscribe for $1 and get access to all my videos, my live streams, everything. And if you decide, well, I don't want to do it this month, you can just be like, I'm going to shut it down for a month, and then just come back another month if you want to, or come back as a full mentorship, which is like $35 a month, where I do like a one-on-one session with you about your photography business and your website or equipment or anything. So yeah, I cover a lot of bases. I'm kind of like your Geek Squad dude for photography. That's basically what I do. So, but yeah, for business and for websites and for software and hardware, Mike, whatever it is, I'm here to help. So, and even I've watched I didn't watch it live, I missed it live, but I watched some of your Adobe Premiere ones, and even I'm not an expert by any means, but I can get by with what I'm doing. But I watched yours, and I learned something every one of them I watched. Oh, great! So even if you already know Lightroom or whatever the topic is you're going over, watching someone else do stuff, I think, is always beneficial, because they may do it different than the way you do it. and you'll pick up, or they may do something you didn't even know how to do.
Oh yeah, I watch all the time. I watch other people's videos all the time, and I think the great thing about Patreon that a lot of people don't understand is that my content is suggested by you. So if you want to learn something, you say, hey, AD, I want to learn After Effects, or hey, AD, I want to learn more on Photoshop, or I want to learn more on Luminar or Aurora. You make the suggestions, I make the tutorials, and I do the live streams for you. So you can request to have things done. And these things were requested. We did one on backups for people. We've done the one on Premiere there. Now we're doing Luminar. We started one on podcasts that I'm going to pick back up as well when we get the new studio. So it's all suggestions by the patrons. They make the suggestions, and I go out and slave away and make the stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Good. And I'm not signed into my account right now, but I am a supporter because I love the content.
Thank you.
All right. So one more thing before we close out is also don't forget to check out AD's store and his website over at theexplorographer.com, where you can find all the different ways to keep track and follow AD. I mainly do it through Facebook, but you're on other social medias too.
I am no longer on Facebook. What?
Since when?
What?
Didn't I just see what?
No, last week. So I have removed my Facebook presence. I just basically my website posts over there, and I share things to that. But I do not actually. I'm actually removing the Facebook app from my phone and the Messenger app from my phone, so it's not a good way to contact me anymore. I'm slowly moving away from the two big guys, Facebook and Twitter. Just a kind of very acidic environments that I'm not overly happy with right now. I might come back someday. I doubt it. I'm really focusing on the Patreon stuff, the YouTube. That's the big thing. We're, in the new house, we talked about this. I'm building a YouTube studio that's specifically going to be set up to record like a television show, because I really want to start pushing this even more. So, in future shows with Mike, you're going to see with a better set in the back and all of that stuff going on. This is my office, so this does everything here. I game here. I build 3D printers here and do 3D printing, and I do my podcasts here, and it's just a nightmare. So in the new house, we're going to have a dedicated studio for the YouTubes and the production of these tutorials and this sort of stuff. So that's the goal.
Well, that's awesome. Look forward to that. With that, if you're leaving Facebook for now, if you have questions.
Yes, I checked the group. Yeah. I will check the group.
Well, we'll say this, even if AD's not, if you have a question that you want AD or, some strange reason me, to cover during this show, you can still leave it in our beginner group or our regulars group, or just email me at podcast at jpeg2RAW.com. Either way, you can put it out there. I will see it. I will try and work it into the show. We'll get it into the show. So either way you want to do it. I will say, as far as for me, Facebook, and the climate that's going on now it seems to be getting worse and worse. But I actually don't look at the news feed that often, not because of the current conditions, but because I have too many family members that like to keep sharing the same stuff, and I got tired of it. And so I mainly just hang out in the groups that I've joined. And some of those go a little crazy too, but that's where I mainly do that kind of stuff. Anyway, thanks for coming out. We had a quick show. We're going to try to keep these short like this, and we'll be back soon. So until then, keep shooting. Good night, everybody.